And this is how we will absolutely know this Sunday whether or not the Raiders are tanking. We will know for sure this Sunday if the Raiders are tanking. Raiders fans are sitting around wondering, what is the deal with Josh McDaniels? What is the deal with Mark Davis? What is the deal with Derek Carr? And can the Raiders quite possibly even get a victory this season after a devastating loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars? And you have their opponent the day before Halloween, their future opponent, interim head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, Jeff Saturday, saying that the Raiders look horrible on October 30th on Twitter. So this guy has thrown some shade at the Raiders before and can clearly see that things are not looking too great for Josh McDaniels, the offensive genius, so to speak. And now Jeff Saturday, as the interim head coach of the Colts, will get an opportunity to prove just how horrible the Raiders are this season. And the biggest shift that happened in this past game was not actually what happened on the field, but what happened afterwards. What happened after the game, the reaction from the players. For the most part, for the majority of this season, the players have always said, hey, it's the execution. It's on the players to execute the plays. And you even had Davante Adams make that same point last night. However, there was some extra salt sprinkled in this reaction to this horrible loss by the players like Davante Adams, saying there's no reason why we should be losing games like this. And he also went a step further, pointing the finger at the coaching staff and saying, hey, there were some things that were working in the beginning of the game and we went away from that. Josh McDaniels commented on these comments from Davante Adams, the fact that the Raiders went away from the passing game when it was working tremendously.
Locker room, Davante said he felt like you guys went away from what was working in the second half. Not just focus on yesterday, but kind of big picture this season. Do you feel like there's areas where you could improve just from a play calling standpoint?
I always think there's areas that I could do better in. I mean, I've stood up here before and said I've never called a perfect game, and I probably never will. You know, I think there's a lot of things that go into that. Davante didn't. I know what he meant when he said that, and I don't take any of those things personally.
And so Josh McDaniels is trying to say he knows what Davante Adams really means by that, but the main point that Davante Adams is saying here is if it's not broke, don't fix it. And things were working out in this game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then the coaches switched up the game plan, and it led to the Raiders only having about 5 plays in the third quarter, it felt like. But at the same time, we know Josh McDaniels has job security. We know Josh McDaniels is here to stay, not only for this year, but it looks to be next year as well. And we can wonder, what is Josh McDaniels' deal? How long is his contract, right? Like I said before, we know he got paid more than $4 million a year to be the coordinator of New England. We know this is possibly a multi-year deal. It's a coaching deal. It has to be fully guaranteed. And in this clip, he even talked about his plans for the future. 5 years down the road, hey, maybe I will stop calling the plays and we'll have someone else.
Who was going to be the play caller? I think everybody felt good about me being the play caller. Maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, maybe that changes.
5 years. When you're thinking 5 years down the road, oh my goodness, Mark Davis, what did you do? Did you give this guy a contract that's 10 years, kind of like the Gruden deal? Based on the way McDaniels is sounding early in the season, seems like that was the case. And so when there is struggles on the offensive side of the ball, there's only one guy that you can really point at other than Josh McDaniels on a consistent basis and say, hey, I'm going to put the blame on this guy. There's only one guy on the offensive side of the ball for the Raiders that Josh McDaniels himself can say, hey, if I just switch this position, everything could change in a positive direction. And it makes people wonder, is Derek Carr going to be the scapegoat for the 2022 season? We know in terms of job security, Josh McDaniels is here to stay, but Derek Carr, we don't know for sure if he's here to stay ever since his contract got restructured and extended, including that 1 year out after this season, a couple of days after the Super Bowl. As long as he is not injured, the Raiders can release Derek Carr with almost no consequences. And with the locker room still closed yesterday, with Davante Adams saying, hey, he doesn't understand why the coaching staff, meaning Josh Genius McDaniels, switched up the game plan. And we know that this locker room was closed because Derek and Davante were having a long, intimate talk in private. And then when you look at what Derek Carr said after the game, saying, hey, there's a lot of things I want to say, I just can't say it right now, and I'm going to go say it privately, man to man. There's only one guy who we know these star players that the fan base loves could be talking about, and I think it's genius Josh McDaniels. And if the season ended today, the Raiders would have the 3rd highest draft pick in the 2023 draft. And you look back on earlier events that happened in the season, and certain things, when you look back at them, kind of look different today and make sense in a different way. And when we first heard about this scouting event in Tennessee, we didn't think too much of it. You know, the Raiders were in Tennessee to face the Titans, and then Dave Ziegler and some scouts went out and watched this Tennessee versus Florida game. game, the Gators versus the Volunteers, and we didn't think anything of it. You know, a lot of people talked about, hey, Anthony Richardson, this guy could potentially be a high draft pick, but then we looked at the style of play of Anthony Richardson and we said, I don't think they're looking for a QB here like some of these other teams. Maybe they're just scouting just because they happen to be there. You might as well scout this game because there's some pretty good players on these teams. But now when you look at Mel Kiper's top 5 QB draft board, you see 2 QBs on this list in the top 5 who played in this game that Dave Ziegler was at when the Raiders are facing the Tennessee Titans. They had Hendon Hooker there of the Tennessee Volunteers and also Anthony Richardson of the Florida Gators. So Dave Ziegler got to look at 2 QBs there, and when you see that the Raiders have this 1 year out in Derek Carr's contract, when you see that the Raiders aren't making great decisions to help Derek Carr, to help Davante Adams win games, when the Raiders are giving up, when the Raiders and Genius Josh are giving up 17-point leads 3 times in the season, the highest in NFL history, it has to make you think, is Josh McDaniels purposely self-destructing for the Raiders to have their own QB in 2023? Keep in mind, prior to this game against the Raiders, the Jacksonville Jaguars were on a 5-game losing streak, and of course they broke that streak against the Las Vegas Raiders. So let me get this straight. Ziegler's watching some QBs early on in the season. The Raiders are blowing these big leads. The locker room is closed. Derek Carr and Davante Adams seem upset with the decision making on the coaching staff. Yes, they're upset about the execution as well, but they're willing to stick their neck out there and say, hey, the coaches got to make decisions too. And like Davante Adams said in this article by Vincent Bozignor, the coaches got to make adjustments just like the players do, and that's just the way the game goes. And by saying, hey, maybe Josh McDaniels isn't trying his absolute best, we're actually giving him the benefit of the doubt here to say that he could actually be doing better than he is right now. He is just deliberately not trying his best to maybe get one of those quarterbacks he saw in Tennessee. And this is how we will absolutely know this Sunday whether or not the Raiders are tanking. We will know for sure this Sunday if the Raiders are tanking, because the Raiders have really just the easiest win handed to them this upcoming Sunday. Not only are they facing the declining Indianapolis Colts, who haven't even had their best player lately, Jonathan Taylor, the running back, but they have a team in front of them who just fired their head coach in Frank Reich. They just fired Frank Reich. Previously, they had fired their offensive coordinator. The Colts fired their offensive coordinator. And before that, they had benched their starting QB, Matt Ryan. So they have a 6th-round pick at quarterback. They have an interim head coach in Jeff Saturday, the same Jeff Saturday who said the Raiders look horrible on October 30th. And keep in mind, Jeff Saturday has not even been in the building. He's going to be the first interim head coach who has not even been in the building this whole time and has no head coaching experience and no college coaching experience either. And keep in mind, nobody in the Colts organization has called offensive plays in an NFL game before because they got rid of that offensive coordinator. So this is a team right now that is actually a complete joke. This is a team that really should not even exist. You have a coach who's never coached in the NFL before. You have a 6th-round QB playing. You don't have your best offensive weapon, and literally none of the players have even shooken this guy's hand before this upcoming week of practice against the Las Vegas Raiders. Oh, and by the way, since the Raiders have not won one game on the road, this game is going to be in Vegas. This is going to be a home game for the Raiders. So if Josh McDaniels finds a way to lose this game against Jeff Saturday and a 6th-round pick QB, I really don't understand how you can sit here and look at me straight in the eyes and say Josh McDaniels is not trying to lose if he loses this game this upcoming week. And if he does lose this game and he is actually trying to win, and if he does lose this game and he is actually trying to win, if there's some way we can prove that, then he does not deserve to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. And quite frankly, he doesn't deserve to be the head coach of any team in the NFL. And we haven't had Darren Waller for some time, and it looks like Darren Waller is going to play this upcoming week. And it looks like Darren Waller is also going to play this week. So there's going to be absolutely no excuses here for Josh McDaniels, Derek Carr, and the Raiders offense. And the big reason why we know Derek Carr could possibly be the scapegoat this year is because there's always going to be a portion of the fan base that does not like Derek Carr. But you saw Kurt Warner's film breakdown of the Raiders against the Saints, and he kind of proved that Josh McDaniels is not putting Derek Carr in good positions to have success. He's not giving him some easy reads, some good plays to really just get some momentum going in these football games at times. And we know Mark Davis courted Tom Brady. He wanted to make a move for Tom Brady in the 2020 season. Dana White sort of confessed that this was in the works, and there was only one guy who shut this down, one guy who really believed believed in Derek Carr and believed in what they had going. And that was John Gruden who shut that down. And now Josh McDaniels, somebody who's used to Brady being his dad, used to being yelled at by Tom Brady and sort of accustomed to it. Maybe he likes it. I don't know. But he's a guy who has a relationship with Brady, and we know Brady and the Buccaneers aren't looking too great this year. And who knows if a change could happen and Derek Carr could be the scapegoat this year, because there's always going to be a portion of the fan base, even despite the facts, despite what Kurt Warner has shown us, they're going to say Derek Carr is the problem. They don't like Derek Carr. Maybe it's a culture thing. I don't know. But they're going to always give people the ammo to have Derek Carr be the scapegoat. And we've seen this year in and year out, Derek Carr being blamed. But other than that one overthrow by Amir Abdullah, I don't know how you look at this past game and think, wow, Derek Carr, he's the problem. I just don't know what it's like to be that person, or to hate somebody so personally so much, where I am so biased, where I just think, oh, he had one overthrow to Amir Abdullah in the end zone, therefore he had a horrible game. In my opinion, Derek Carr's biggest problem right now is Josh McDaniels. That is actually Derek Carr's biggest problem right now. And if he can adjust to Josh McDaniels, or force Josh McDaniels to adjust to him, maybe we could find some light at the end of the tunnel this year. But if Josh McDaniels loses this upcoming game against a team that is completely collapsing, we will know that there's no hope in sight, and he has plans for something else at possibly the quarterback position. We have reached over 32,000 subscribers. Let's get to 33,000 subscribers by the next video. Like this video if you haven't already, and subscribe to the Raiders Rundown for more Raiders content. My name is WiFiWillie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.